So our last speaker for today, Onjali Q Raúf, is an award-winning, best-selling author of books for children that tackle the issues of today. Her titles include The Boy at the Back of the Class, The Star Outside the Window, The Nightbus Hero, and The Lion Above the Door. Onjali is also the founder of Making Her Story, an organisation mobilising men, women and children from all walks of life to tackle the abuse and trafficking of women and girls in the UK and beyond. She's also the founder of O's Refugee Aid Team, which provides support for refugee families surviving in Calais and Dunkirk. Onjali, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, hi everyone, hello. Thank you so much for having me, it's such an honour.
Thank you. And, you're one of my favourite authors. I love
Charmer,
your book.
I bet you say that to all of them.
No, I'm very sad. I've even got the book here. So thank you.
Thank you.
I am handing over to Imrana, who's going to ask you some questions today.
Okay.
Fantastic. Hello, Onjali. I'm just trying not to be too starstruck because I'm like, you know, I get to interview you, which is definitely an amazing
Nothing to be starstruck at all. Thank you for that. I'm starstruck. I'm always really awed when I get to meet teachers and educators who are really helping, you know, books get out into the world. So thank you for having me.
No, it's a really inspiring space today. So if we start off just by asking you really, what inspired you to start writing?
Really, two things. First of all, my teacher at school. So I had an amazing teacher called Miss Kumi in my primary school, Mayflower Primary School in Tower Hamlets. And she was just the most incredible storyteller. So every day, just before home time, we'd have half an hour where we got to sit and just listen to her tell a story. And she'd do all kinds of things. She'd use puppets, she'd use music, anything that would get us interested in the story that she was about to tell. And she just made me really have the confidence to want to tell stories of my own. So I began to create things, mainly to annoy my little brother at home, but also to show Miss Kumi that I had these stories to tell. So number one, Miss Kumi, and number two was my mum. So my mum would, without fail, take me to the library every Friday after school, no matter how knackered she was after work. She'd take me and my little brother to the library, and we'd max out our library cards. And we just had this really beautiful space at home, which I could then share at school with my friends, where books and, you know, storytelling was a massive thing. And my mum was a massive Agatha Christie fan. So used to have, you know, Poirot and Miss Marple just lying around the house. And she would talk to us about them. She was trying to, you know, kind of learn English and learn colloquialisms and etiquette that was through the Agatha Christie world. And I grew up thinking that Poirot and Miss Marple was a long lost uncle and aunt I hadn't met yet. But you know, we had this incredible storyteller at home and then a storyteller at school, and both of them made me want to write stories and create stories. And I had this space where I could do that. So yeah, two people in my life that I have to credit with everything.
Yeah, that's so beautiful to hear, and especially you talking about teachers and obviously being in a room full of amazing educators as well. And I watched on ITV an audience with Adele and her talking obviously about, you know,
God.
yeah,
I'm still crying over it. I tweeted it out and it got amazing response. And I was like, this is just how dire the love is for teachers out there in terms of being verbalized. It's there all the time, and all the kids that are in your classroom, but it's just not verbalized. And she did it so beautifully. So yeah, we're still crying over that one.
No, that's right. No, it's lovely to hear about
Tears of joy
as well. Yeah, absolutely. So then coming on to more specifically about your writing then. So what kind of lived experiences then have you drawn on to create some of the characters in your books?
What have I not drawn on? I don't know what to write next because I think I've drawn on all of them. So with The Boy at the Back of the Class, so that was the first book that came out, and that's drawn from the refugee works that I do with kids in Dunkirk and Calais, and also the kids here who are getting bullied and, you know, not fitting in and feeling so out of place. And it's just, you know, that was, The Boy at the Back of the Class was really written for all the kids that I have the privilege and honour of meeting, who have survived the most horrific journeys and trials and tribulations of the world and who are really thriving. Star Outside My Window, again, that's a book that centers on domestic violence without really calling it out in that way, but it's about a little girl who's on the hunt for her mum, and, you know, I get to meet children who have, you know, are going through a world of change without really understanding what's happened and why this is the case, and what's happened within their family, that they're in a foster home or they're in a women's refuge. So again, that's been called on to write that story. Nightbus Hero centers on a bully who tells a story, and there's a man called Thomas who's homeless in the book, and I met a homeless man when I was about 14, 15 on my way to school every day, and we just became kind of like silent friends. So I was really shy. I was too shy to speak to him, but I'd run over and give him bits of my lunch box, you know, that I had saved up for him, or buy him a hot chocolate with my, you know, pocket money or something. But we became friends, and one day he was just gone from my life, and I learned that later that he'd died without anyone really even knowing his name. So that experience really triggered me to go and work with homeless shelters and homeless people, and that's what led to my refugee work. So really Thomas, my Thomas, who inspired the Thomas in the book, kind of, you know, triggered my actions in the world, and I think where I am today. And the line above the door, I can't believe I've got these books. The line above the door is a book about a boy called Leo, who is Singaporean. He lives in a very small town in Kent, and he's very aware that he's different to all his classmates, that he and his best friend Sankita, who's the only Indian girl in the village and in the school, that they're the only two people who look like them, and that includes in their history books. So he's getting bullied, you know, target of racist bullying. He's also questioning about his role in the world, about why it is that people and ancestors in his family are never in the history books, they've never done anything to help the world, and they go on this epic journey after he sees his name on a Second World War memorial. And that's been triggered by all kinds of things. And I think for anybody who has grown up hearing the words, you know, go back home, or they've been called names, or they've been made fun of because of the things they have in their lunchbox, they'll know Leo. They'll get why he walks around with this bruise inside of him. And to get our, you know, to be able to put racism into a book and really explore it and kind of implode it, and also highlight historical racisms and how that impacts our life today, is really a great pleasure. So sorry, that's such a long answer to the question, but pretty much everything that I've ever thought about or wanted to question or wanted to ask is in the books. And the great feedback, sorry, I forgot about this one. So I was a free school meal kid at school. I lived in one of the poorest boroughs. Not that I didn't have an amazing childhood, I did, but I was very aware that, you know, it's not normal to always have a free school meal and to have parents who are working all hours and still not have enough money for things. And Marcus Rashford kicked that into our consciousness in a beautiful way this past year. So I just want to honour him and all the people that I get to work with in food banks through that story. So yeah, sorry, that's a really long answer.
No, you don't need to apologise at all. It's just wonderful to hear, and I think, you know, there's such a huge breadth of stuff that you've been able to, I think tackle. And I mean, to me, it's the main reasons I buy all your books, saying they're for my children. They're not really. They're really for me, because I wouldn't have had all these stories when I was younger, and you know, the yearning, and you know, just the enjoyment I get from reading them and feeling seen. And I think, you know, just that kind of visibility is just so important as well. So thank you for that. So in the note, I mean, obviously, you know, having heard some of the themes that you tackle, which is obviously looking at refugees, you know, gender, I guess, stereotypes, because the wonderful way that you wrote the boy at the back of the class, you know, and in terms of not revealing the gender, so to speak, was just, you know, it was just amazing. So, you know, what do you think, or what do you kind of hope that the impact that your book will have on the readers?
So I have to say, so when I wrote The Boy at the Back of the Class, I didn't know if it was ever going to get published, because I had an agent by then, but she was working on a trilogy of chocolate books that I'd written, a trilogy about chocolate, because chocolate's the best thing in the world. But I'd written this book, and I didn't really know if it was ever going to get published or, you know, get out. And I thought, you know, once the publisher said yes to it, I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. Maybe some kids who have met refugees or have had a refugee family move in, that, you know, they'll be interested in picking up the book. But I had no idea that it would have the kind of, you know, massive uptaking that it has, both amongst children and amongst adults as well. And I think the biggest thing that I've really recognized with all the books is they provide a safe space for questions, which I didn't expect for them to provide. I didn't really go into writing thinking that that's what they were going to do. So my biggest thing is, whenever I hear a kid who's started a conversation at home about refugees or food poverty or whatever it is, that's been triggered by the book, and or that they've had that conversation with their teachers in class, or something's happening where they're taking the issue and taking it one step further. And I never expected any of that. So I think the short answer would be, for me now, opposed to them just wanting to read it, is to have the discussions that they need to have. My children are filled with questions questions. They need a space to ask those questions. And I think somehow I've been lucked out, and I've given them stories which they can take forward and get those, get their answers to those questions, or go off and discover what's going on their own. So yeah, I'm getting discussions going, and then finding safe spaces to ask the questions they need to ask.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think it applies to, I guess, the young people as well as teachers, because obviously teachers themselves are reading the books, and we just had that similar conversations in breakout space as well. So on the topic of kind of schools, how have you seen schools utilize the themes to encourage kind of discussions specifically on like culture and identity?
In really surprising ways. So with regards to, I'll use the White class. So one of the first kind of signs I had that this book was doing something I wasn't quite expecting was I got an email within a few weeks of it being published from a 78-year-old granddad whose family were Holocaust survivors, and he had come forward to say, thank you for writing the book, but it's the first time ever that my children or my grandchildren have come and asked me what my refugee experience was like. They've never really asked me about any of that or even recognized that. So they started having these discussions. And then on the school front, I've had Somali families come forward and say the same thing. Anyone who's got a refugee history, they've come forward and said, like, we're talking about it, which is incredible. But in schools in particular, teachers using it to highlight what it means to be someone who's from the outside, to try and have a different perspective, to do away with the newspeak that we're hearing, to do away with the language that we might be hearing that might be racist. Undoing all of that within the classroom and using the books to do that is really beautiful. And I've had children writing with the teachers' guidance to Priti Patel and to the Home Office and to even the Queen, asking them to be more humane and wanting to know answers to their questions. So many ways, and I think it's really quite mind-boggling and quite beautiful that in the classroom teachers have begun to use so many books, not just mine, to enable children to feel like they can have conversations. But not only that, but if they are the outsider, if they are the refugee, if they are the person having a free school meal, that actually they're now the cool person, that they're now the person that everyone wants to be friends with. So yeah, it's been really wonderful to see all of that happening.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, and I think it's great. Again, it's just going back to just having the conversations, having the space for them as well. Mm-hmm. The next question's a little bit bigger. What would your hopes be for enabling change in the cultural education sector?
That's not big at all. I would say that it's started. The fact that we're here and that you're here and that you're having these sessions and talking about culture and identity, the fact that we have CLPE who are doing this fantastic analysis of books and seeing, what characters are out there, what's missing, and identifying what can be rectified. I think there's a massive push right now within the publishing world, and not just publishing world, but I think across all art sectors, to ensure that there is visibility. And the fact that we're having these discussions to ensure that we get that visibility right, and that we don't do it in a patronizing, kind of subliminally racist way is really important. And the fact that we're getting more authors and artists who come from different backgrounds finally being given room at the table to actually write the stories that they want to write is really incredible. So it's already started, and I think just to say to all of you, I say this to most of the teachers that I ever meet, is you're at the forefront of change. We have a generation of children who are facing some of the biggest issues that we will ever face as a human race, and I feel so sorry for them in so many ways, that they're having to start at a very young age to understand what's going on in the society, or wider society. But teachers are at the forefront, because so many kids won't have that safe space at home. The classroom becomes the safe space. So ensuring that your education syllabus, that your books in your classroom, the things that you talk about are not only relatable, but identifiable by the kids that are sitting in front of you, that they really care too. They really want to ask you questions. They really want to know what's going on. If you as a teacher are able to tap into that, then that changes worlds in forever, and that changes the way that the world works forever. So it's really, it's an amazing thing to be at that forefront. It's also quite scary. So I think there's more and more people coming out and recognizing that actually children's literature and children being in a classroom together are the instigators of just eternal change. So it's, there's a lot going on there that's already started, and I'm really happy to be able to be a small part of that.
Yeah, no, thank you. You've been an amazing catalyst, and I think what you said about teachers being the forefront eternal change. I mean, I guess that's exactly what, you know, we want, you know. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time out today as well. And I think I'm going to hand over to Tina for any questions that might be in the chat box.
Thanks, Imrana. Yeah, and thanks so much, Onjali. I think there's lots of questions in the chat box just about how they're loving, how their students are really loving your books. There's one from Hannah saying that at the moment she's using the text of the boy at the back of the class to support writing, and the children are loving the story so far, and they're learning so much about refugees, and it's created so many meaningful discussions.
Amazing.
That's lovely. And Christine just wanted to say, oops, sorry, one moment. Just wanted to say thank you for your books. I never had the feeling.
That's so lovely.
I never had.
Give your kids a massive hug from me when you go back to them tomorrow.
Christine said, I've never had the feeling of being seen as a child. To be able to share your books with my class and see their reaction is amazing. And that's stunning, isn't it? A question for you. What's next on your horizon?
Sleep. I want to sleep. I would like to sleep. I think most teachers would like to sleep as well. Sleep, and as long as I can, for as long as the kids will have me and you will have me, I'll continue writing stories. So there's a non-fiction coming out that I've just finished called Hope on the Horizon. So it's for little activists who want to know what to do and be inspired by books as well, to go out and do what they want to do in the world. And yeah, I don't know what the 5th book is going to be about, but we'll figure it out.
And the last question is, your books start many conversations at home and in school. What would your advice be to teachers who read your book and have those questions come to them from children? What would your advice be to them on how they tackle those questions?
I would say the number one thing is honesty. If you don't know the answer, go exploring with the kid, because they want that. They want a partner who's going to explore with them, and just being honest about what's going on, and obviously being honest in a kind and gentle way. And I think all teachers do that quite beautifully. But yeah, being honest and having honest conversations, and also making sure that the kid knows that you're also learning. I think that's pretty important. And I think Miss Kumi did that with me all the time. So I remember us sitting together to look at words in the dictionary that, you know, I didn't understand, or her finding a place in a map that she hadn't heard of that I was talking about. So it's really wonderful to see that your teacher is also learning with you, and being honest in that conversation.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you're crazy busy, and I think you can see the love that has been sent to you via the chat box as well. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to hand over to Adam.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much. What an exciting final speaker to have. And we're going to move into our final breakout today. So the questions here, which Alexis is about to pop into the chat box, are what will help you move forward at your school with addressing culture and identity, and to help you with that, or to open the box.